Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 329 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, starting with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How's it going today, Richard?
Hey Seth, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We got some interesting stuff to talk about today, but before we get to that, we have another co-host in Krim. How are you this fine Monday, Krim?
Morning, Seth. Pretty good.
Well, that is good. So, we're going to have an interesting cast today. We got some big Magic news that came out in the last week. We're going to start by talking about organized play, some big changes to esports and organized play, some comments from Mark Rosewater kind of related to that. So I'm going to start off with that. Also talk a little bit more about Magic Arena and the Arena Open this weekend. We have historic Anthology cards, version 5 coming out soon. We got the full set. We have some new Secret Lair news and also fish mail. So we're going to be jumping around, but starting with the topic that caused the biggest amount of conversation in the community in the past week, which is Wizards announced some big changes to esports and organized play. Richard, what's the quick recap in case anyone missed it? Let people know.
All right, the quick recap is the MPL is done. They've declared it to be the last season, and they have not declared the replacement. But they did say that organized play will not be explicitly designed to support competitive Magic as a career path. However, there will be Grand Prix, PTQs, Pro Tours, and the like events. So no more MPL, replacement unknown, but something to do with Grand Prix, PTQs, and Pro Tours. And piggybacking off of that, I don't know, do we want to combine these topics? Maro basically said that 10% of players participate in sanctioned events. So anytime you go to like an F&M or a pre-release or anything, you're in a sanctioned event. So basically saying like these events are not as big for the normal person. For the normal Magic player, these events are not as big. So maybe we'll split that in its own topic, since that kind of spiraled out from this. But basically, you know, people are like, what about the pros? And then people are like, what about us? Is it just all casual players? And then this whole thing just devolved into complaint fest, I guess, this weekend.
Yeah, so probably dealing with them separately makes sense, although they definitely are related. If you saw the stream Blake did on Thursday, where they were talking about the organized play changes, one of the things he brought up, I believe multiple times, was basically Wizards / Hasbro felt like they were investing a lot of money into spikes, essentially, like heavy, competitive, deeply in franchise play. And part of the reason for the organized play changes, or they want to kind of rebalance, I think was the word they used, because there's tons of casual players that are spikes out there that are maybe underserved. So they basically want to redo the mix and focus less on the super heavily in franchise spike players, but more on the casual players that are being underserved, but still try to do something for everyone. But really, like, these changes, oh my goodness. So the good news is, I think everyone, including MPL players for the most part, agree that MPL was basically a disaster. It was a flop for a bunch of reasons. No fault, I don't think, or at least very minimal fault to the pros themselves. Like, they were just kind of set up for failure. Wizards made a lot of hype about the MPL when it started, but that kind of quickly faded, and all of a sudden it wasn't very well promoted, and there were lots of issues with who was in and out of the league, who was getting regulated out of the league, who was being regulated, who was being added to the league. So there was tons of problems with the MPL. So I feel like getting rid of the MPL, I think that makes sense. Like, it definitely feels bad for the pros, and I personally feel bad for the pros because there are a lot of people that were counting on this as essentially their full-time job and living, but the MPL itself, I think it really had to go. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, did anyone even like the MPL or want it to be a thing?
I mean, yeah, like I wanted it to be a success, right? It's nice to have some kind of, like pro league that, there's like a bunch of, face pros for the game. It seemed great in like, in theory and all that stuff. So it's just unfortunate the way it got promoted, the way it got handled when it came to their content, all that stuff just kind of, it kind of didn't really do much. Like, it just felt like they could have done so much more with it, and it just kind of fell off to the wayside.
Yeah, I like watched MPL once. So I don't even know what's going on in the MPL. It just didn't appeal to me. Right. So I didn't watch it. So, and it didn't appeal to anyone given the numbers. So it makes sense that they're sunsetting it. They tried it. They tried their foray into esports, and then it didn't work out. So they're back to the drawing board. That's essentially what they're saying. So I don't know that anyone really disagrees with that part of it, because like MPL wasn't a success, right? It's pretty well known. So better try something else.
The scary part, though, is there was no replacement announced. And the replacement, Wizard said some good things, like, oh, we want to have like GPs and we want to have paper events. And if you read the article, you could come away with the impression that, oh, they're going to go back to something kind of like the old pre-MPL system where there's PTQs and then you do well and you make it to Pro Tours. But it sounds like they were pretty explicit with the pros themselves that, like, there's not going to be a pro club. There's not going to be platinum and gold and silver. You're not going to have the ability to have your full-time living being playing Magic tournaments. At least Wizards doesn't think that's an option. The part that scares me, though, is they didn't really announce anything specific. They had some very broad things that I think most people are happy about. Like, people like GPs, people like Pro Tours, like people like big Magic, paper Magic tournaments. But without having these specifics, I'm really nervous because we've just seen so many times where Wizards like has what sounds like a good idea, and then a year or 2 or 3 goes by and we just kind of never hear about it again. I think there was like that $1 million, was it the Greenlight Club or something, where Wizards was going to have $1 million they were going to give to content creators and pitch your ideas. And it was this big hype thing. And then all of a sudden we didn't hear anything else. There was last year, the Hall of Fame. Like, we're getting rid of the Hall of Fame, but in 2021, we're going to have an even better, more awesome Hall of Fame. And we'll let you know the details. And now we're halfway through 2021 almost and have not really heard anything about the Hall of Fame. Do either of you have any worry that this is going to be a lot worse than it seems like it could be? I think like people are envisioning, yeah, we go back to a bunch of GPs and we have a bunch of Pro Tours, but when we actually get the details, do you think people are going to be happy with the system? Or do you think it's something where when we actually find out the details, people are going to be like, oh, this is not what we were hoping for or signing up for?
I mean, I normally would go for like, something a little more positive, if you would, but I don't think people will be happy with whatever's going to be announced. Mostly just because I feel like it. How do you salvage this, right? Like it's, if you were there, like, you're not going to revert it back to the way you had it before, and it can't be the MPL too. So I don't know how you fix the situation and without going like reverting back to like just the original Pro Tour or whatever format that was.
I mean, I think pros will be unhappy because Wizards explicitly stated like, we are not supporting pros anymore, right? Like, outright, you're not going to get kind of like, like hotel fare, travel fare, stuff like that. But if I read between the lines, what they're saying is they want to like make more Grand Prix and make them accessible to more people, right? So if you are just like a random grinder or a spike, I think this new system will benefit you. And if you were at the top of the old system, like a pro who got, paid to get, flown out to events and things like that, then the system will not benefit you. There are a lot more just regular spikes than pros. So net overall, I think this is better. But, there are no details. Nobody knows, right? But I think they're just taking all the MPL money and they're just going to like throw Magic Fest and Grand Prix and things like that and have like big open tournaments where you don't get like preferential treatment if you had previous results like pros do today, right? So I think I'm on board with that. I mean, it sounds fine. And I don't know. It's going to depend on the details as they roll it out.
Also, as far as the announcement, it was a little awkward just how it came off. Like, a lot of the most important information wasn't actually in the article that they posted, and then you kind of had to like find tweets from the Magic esports account or watch their live stream or see them replying to like things that I said or things that other people said. So it felt like, and apparently what they told the MPL themselves was a little bit different, or at least more explicit than what they told everyone, as far as like, don't tell people you're professional Magic players anymore, because that is, you're not going to be like, and that didn't really come across through the article, that like, this is not going to be a thing anymore. I think overall though, does Magic need a pro class to actually thrive? And I'm not sure that it does, honestly. I love the Pro Tour and I enjoy watching tournaments, but I think, and this kind of leads into what Mark Rosewater was saying, with 10% of people actually, participating in sanctioned events. But most people don't. Like, we just had the pandemic year where we weren't having any paper Magic tournaments. The MPL was not getting any meaningful amount of views on Twitch and was kind of fading as it was for the past year. But Magic still had its most profitable and apparently most successful year that it had ever had. Does this matter? Does Magic need pros? I think it needs organized play, and we need big tournaments that people can go play in. But do we need, some number of people who are purely playing Magic tournaments as their source of income? Like, is that important to the game's success, you guys think?
I don't think so in 2021. I think it's more important that you get Post Malone playing Magic than building up LSV. I think Mr. Beast is way more important than, the next Paulo. I don't think we need, like, there will always be a pro scene, right? Like, no matter what the game is, there'll be a bunch of individuals who will try to optimize and play the best, and that's great. But I think that that's no longer relevant in terms of, like, as someone in the Magic community, I'm not like looking for pro matches and learning from pro players anymore, right? I'm watching content creators on Twitch and on YouTube. I'm watching, content creators outside my game play, right? I'm doing these other things, right? I think in 2021, you no longer need that pro scene because players don't play like that, right? Like, the majority of players aren't spikes, right? Like, they're not trying to play optimized decks, finding optimized lines and things like that. They're just trying to play some jank, have some fun, drink a few beers with their friends and call it a day. So they have no need to watch this. So that's why I don't think we need pros anymore. And I think it makes sense that Wizards doesn't support them, and they put that money into other aspects of the game that, does support the regular community, right? Which is, if you're spikes, that means just like lower level spikes, like people who go to Grand Prix, people that go to PTQs, things like that. Or if you're casual, like you're not even playing in sanctioned events whatsoever, then help those players connect, like maybe Command Fest, something like that. So yeah, I don't know that we need pros in 2021 anymore.
Yeah, that it's kind of weird to say that, and also we've kind of seen them already hint at it before, right? With that this isn't the first time they're trying to do away with like the pro scene, anyways. But yeah, like I think that's probably true, right? I mean, we don't need a pro scene, or at least in WotC's eyes.
So I think one question would be, how much do pros matter for the average person's enjoyment of the big events? That's something I've been wondering about. Like, when you go to a GP, how much of that is because you're going to get to potentially meet your favorite pro, your LSV, your Paulo, or whoever it is? If I go to this GP, there's going to be a bunch of people that I've seen on YouTube or seen on Twitch or heard people talking about that are going to be there. I can meet them. Maybe I can play against them. I can get an autograph. How big of a draw do you think that is? That would be the one way I could see the pro scene actually really mattering for the new system, is maybe that's a reason that people go. Like, I've had people tell me that they went to GP Vegas specifically so they could meet me. I'm sure that there's people that are doing the same thing for LSV and Paulo and other pros. Like, is there any concern that the Grand Prix that they do have, that they're saying we are going to have once the system rolls out, are going to be less exciting for the average player because the pro aspect might not be there?
What if you go to a Magic Fest to meet Post Malone, Seth?
Yeah, I guess
right?
I guess that's true.
Them, right? And there's other people to meet, right? There's content creators, there's cosplayers, there's artists, there's wizards. And the pros will still be there, right? Like the pros just won't disappear. They're just not being paid by Wizards, right? So you will still go there and you will still see whoever won the last Pro Tour or something, right? If it happens to be in their area. The difference is Wizards won't pay them money to fly them like across the world to show up, right? But, you know, if you're in the area, they'll probably be there. You can still meet them, right? They'll still be players, right? And they'll still be playing at the highest level events. So I don't know that part went away. I don't know that Wizards paid LSV explicitly to walk around the floor to sign autographs, right? He just did that because he wanted to, right? So I think that part will continue and it won't just like disappear.
I don't know. I was watching Paulo's video about all this, and I would encourage you to check it out on his YouTube. He has a really good, like, pro perspective take on it. And his perspective, and this is partly based on him living in Brazil, was basically with this new system, I probably won't be able to go to tournaments. Like when it comes down to it, like it's so expensive for me to travel that most of the time I was losing money, even with the benefits I had as a pro player. I was losing money to go to a tournament, but it was worth it because there was like a progression. Like I could go and do well, and that would qualify me for Worlds or get me, you know, into these other tournaments where then I could make enough money that it would hopefully in the end still be profitable. So I'm not sure. I feel like in something he brought up, which was a good point, if you live on the East Coast of the United States or probably the West Coast of the United States, maybe this is fine for you because you'll probably have a bunch of tournaments that you can maybe even drive to and it's not going to be expensive. But if you're from Europe or from APAC or from South America, that's going to be kind of a deal breaker. And Paulo said that Wizards basically told them, like, if you're a pro from outside of, you know, the United States or another area where there's lots of tournaments, we don't expect you to go to paper tournaments. We expect you to become like a digital player, essentially. And that'll be your competitive play. We'll be trying to qualify through Arena or who knows, maybe Magic Online. So I do think it hurts some people more than others. I think my best hope is that they greatly increase the prize pool. Like that's the way I could see this working. Cause like, I don't think most poker players have, you know, a guaranteed income. Their income is going and playing in a tournament. Maybe they have sponsorships. Maybe they do YouTube or Twitch or something, which is all available to pro Magic players as well. But they survive off of their tournament winnings. The problem is Magic tournaments, you get $10,000 for first place and some, you know, tiny amount for getting a top 16 or whatever. Magic tournaments traditionally just haven't paid out that much. If they raise the prize pool enough, maybe it could work like poker, and maybe you would still have pros who would travel to events even though they don't have a guaranteed income because they know they're better than Magic than most people, and they probably have higher odds of, you know, getting a top 8. And if you're getting $100,000 or so, you know, $1 million, $500,000 for coming in first place at a tournament, that's a lot different than if you're getting 10 grand or something, I think, as far as the equation. And they did mention like they were focused on increasing prizes for tournaments. So maybe that could be a situation that works, even without having any sort of like solid pro, you know, gold, silver, platinum, MPL, any solid pro status like that, if they increase the prize pool enough. Because I think it does matter to some extent, I would say, if like everyone who was in the MPL and in Rivals suddenly just doesn't go to Magic tournaments anymore. I don't think that kills the game, but I do think that that's going to make GPs and Pro Tours a little bit less exciting for people if you can't meet those kind of people there, because it's just not worth it for them to go.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier, right? Counterpoint is we haven't had paper events for the last year, and Magic is the strongest it's ever been. So, like, by increasing prize pool, right, you're saying Wizards should invest more in competitive scene, which I think they've just basically said we're not going to do, right? So I don't know that it'll happen, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to, I mean, I guess they could take, like, say, the money away from the pros and then just put it into the general competitive scene, right? So prize pools increase, but maybe the pros aren't the ones who win it. But they're almost the same to me, right? Like, why would you increase the prize pool of a Grand Prix if no one is watching, you know, the Grand Prix coverage, right? Like, how are you making this money back, right? Are people buying more secret layers when you do this, right? And the answer is it's not clear and it probably is not happening. So, like, why would you put more money into the tournament?
And yeah, I mean, what do you think, Grim?
No, I mean, like without, I don't think I'd be saying anything without restating what pretty much y'all have said right now. So
I think the other thing I want to point out is we've been focusing on pros at the moment because of this OP announcement, which kind of like specifically impacts pros. But I kind of feel like Wizards' attitude is like somewhat the same for the content creator community. Like we kind of saw the same sort of trend where Wizards like, hey, if you're a Magic content creator, we're not going to do like early access event. And we don't even know about the creator program. They just like stopped responding from what I've heard to a lot of messages about the content creator program. So I kind of feel like this is part of the same trend where Wizards, they want to shuffle money to people, to the casual community. But I think to Wizards, that means Mr. Beast and other non-Magic players who can maybe reach out into people who bought a few packs at Walmart and played on their kitchen table, but never really got further in the game than that. How do you reach those people? LSV's apparently not reaching them. I'm apparently not reaching them. So how do you reach them? You go to Mr. Beast, who maybe they watch on YouTube for unrelated reasons, or Hearthstone players or chess players. So I kind of feel like you can see a lot of similarities between the OP changes and how Wizards has been handling like the creators program, where I feel like they're just shifting away from the old guard to some extent of like content creators and pros being the way to promote Magic, and going in a different direction where they're trying to reach casuals by supporting non-Magic players for the most part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it works. Right? Saffron Olive will continue to make arena videos regardless of Wizards paying us anything or giving us cards or anything, because we've been doing it for years and we will continue to do it, right? Whereas Mr. Beast will do absolutely nothing unless you pay him, right? So we should use the money where the results will come, right? So yeah, right? Like I think paying people already making content creation is weird because they're already making it. Like there's no payoff. But things like early access to cards, like that's something that we cannot get no matter what, right? We need Wizards to do that for us. Cutting that off is a little strange given the costs. But like, for example, sponsoring content or something, right? Like paying existing Magic creators to create Magic content, I think is not an effective use of money, right? You should probably spend that on Hearthstone creators or chess creators or something to get the new Magic players. So that part I can agree with, or I can see like the rationale behind it. But I mean, Wizards hasn't helped content creators for the longest time. We all know that, right? Like early access was as far as they went, right? Like they do very little for content creators because content creators will make content regardless, right? We will play Magic and make Magic videos regardless of what Wizards does. And they know it, right? So I don't know. That's how it is.
I mean, yeah, you look at other games too, and there's tons of other games that don't work nearly as close at all, like with any of its content creators, except for maybe the top creators, right? So I'm sure Wizards is just kind of going to follow suit.
So this kind of dovetails into Mark Rosewater's quote or tweet that came up. So this happened a couple days ago. I was thinking about enfranchised players and casual players and mentioned something about how I would guess if you could somehow have the median Magic player line everyone up from how enfranchised they are to from very enfranchised to least enfranchised, that the median would almost certainly be someone who doesn't watch Pro Tours, doesn't play in Pro Tours, doesn't watch MTGGoldfish content, or probably any content, or engage in Magic social media. Someone who's like playing Magic cards on their kitchen table, bought a few packs, plays a game once in a while. And Mark Rosewater chimed in and said that was 100% true, essentially. And less than 10% of Magic players have ever played in a sanctioned tournament. Did that number surprise you guys at all? I know that was a reaction I saw from some people. I figured the number was low, but less than 10%. That is, and that's including presumably pre-release events, F&M. Those are sanctioned events where you need your DCI number, or your Wizards account or whatever. Did that number surprise you?
Not at all. I mean, maybe like no, actually that makes a lot of sense when you see so many people, like back when there were paper events. You'd see so many people who would just, you talk to so many of them, they're like, no, I don't do any of that stuff, right? A lot of it is kitchen table. A lot of them you don't even see at the LGS. They just order everything online, and you probably don't even run into them. The people that, Mark Rosewater is talking about, like it totally makes sense that that's the number.
I mean, it's low. It's a little surprising, but not that surprising. Seth, when was the last time you played a sanctioned tournament?
Geez, who knows? Years, many years.
Like never, like 7 years ago, maybe.
I mean, I've done some pre-releases, but it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done a sanctioned event in like 3 years or something, right? And we are enfranchised, right? So you can imagine a normal person not going to a pre-release, right? Like, who wants to wake up at or stay up till midnight and play and whatever, right? I'll just order some cards off Amazon and play with my friends and call it a day, right? So it's not like surprising that it's low. Now the exact number, take with a grain of salt, like how exactly they calculate it, like who knows? But the answer is it's very low, right? That's the TLDR, right? So whether it be 10%, 20%, 15%, 5%, like doesn't matter. It's just extremely low. Most players do not have a DCI number, is what this is saying, right? They do not show up to their LGS to play a tournament, let alone a Pro Tour or a Grand Prix or PTQ. And a lot of people are shocked about this, right? Because, if you're on Reddit, if you're on Twitter, you're talking to very enfranchised players. We all have DCI numbers. We even compare how low the digits are, right? To one up each other on how old school we are, right? And that's just like kind of the internal club we have, right? And that's what like kind of unites us together. But there are a lot of people outside that club and they far outweigh us. And those are the people that go to Walmart, buy some cards, even go to your LGS. You've probably seen them, but they just go in, buy a box, go home, and then play with their friends. So yeah, 10%.
Yeah, and I think that maybe shines a little bit of light on what Wizards is thinking with some of the organized play changes. Like, and Mark Rosewater did follow up and say, organized play isn't going away. There's still going to be ways to play competitive Magic, and we care a lot about enfranchised players. We spend more time on them than any other group by a lot. So this isn't a bash on, our little group of heavily enfranchised players, but I think what Wizards is thinking, and if you watch the live stream, what they were kind of saying is, we put a lot of money and time and effort into what is a very small group of Magic players. The pros, the content producers, the Redditors, the Magic Twitter people. That's the group that we have invested a ton in, but actually that's a really tiny fraction of the overall Magic community, like 5% or 1% or 10%. Like it's a very, very small amount. So they're spending a ton of resources on a very small group and then relatively few resources and relatively little time on the huge group that's 90 or 95% that isn't talking about Magic on social media or watching Twitch streams or YouTube videos or Pro Tours or playing in tournaments. So I think that Wizards views this as just kind of like not getting rid of organized play. I don't think that's the goal. They've been clear that their goal is to still have organized play, but to be able to kind of even out where their resources and where their time's going a little bit. And honestly, like I'm very afraid of what the future is going to look like, whether this week's announcement is going to be followed up by something that's actually good. But from Wizards' perspective, it does kind of make sense. If you're spending 90% of your time and effort on 10% of your players and 10% on 90% of your players, that's probably not very good math or a very good business sense. So I guess I can see from Wizards' perspective, if that's how they're looking on it, why they would be trying to reorganize and go more after and invest more in the casual crowd that has maybe been kind of underserved over the last few years of Magic. So even though I'm worried about what the future holds and I'm going to really miss having, pro Magic and organized play until Wizards announces what's next, maybe it makes some amount of sense from their perspective when you really think of it that way.
Yeah. And
I'm just curious how you better serve the casual community, like
Secret Lair, Walking Dead.
I mean,
no joke, right? Like maybe the enfranchised community hates it, but everyone else loves it. What are they going to choose, right? Choose the 90% or the 10%, right? And if they cared about what people said on Reddit, they wouldn't release another one, right? But if they care about the casual crowd that just ate it up, then they would keep doing it, right? So like I actually think that is a legitimate thing where there is a divide. And Wizards will choose one side. And in this case, they're choosing casual, right? Because we have Universes Beyond, which is literally Secret Lair, Walking Dead into like an actual multiple sets, right? So I think stuff like that is where we'll see it.
And I also assume that their goal is to hopefully turn some of those more casual, less enfranchised players into enfranchised players, because obviously the enfranchised group that's spending a lot of money and talking about Magic constantly and making content about it and going to tournaments and driving long distances to do it, those are very valuable customers to Wizards. So I think that they would like to take that person who's buying a pre-con when they check out a Walmart and plays a couple games on their kitchen table and reach out to them and get them to the local game store, get them to F&Ms, or turn them into someone who's, playing Commander or going to a Command Fest. So I think that's part of it too, is just trying to get some of that 90% and push them into the 10% or whatever number it actually is of heavily enfranchised players, because the more invested people are, the better it is for Wizards. So how exactly you go about that, whether it's, Post Malone or Mr. Beast or some of the new tournaments they're doing with chess players and Hearthstone players and so forth, how you do it, I don't know. But I think that that's probably what their goal is, I would say.
And to wrap this up, for people who enjoy watching high-level Magic, I wouldn't give up hope yet, right? You still have Star City games, right? Just because Wizards doesn't invest in the tournament scene doesn't mean other companies won't, right? If SCG finds it profitable and people are watching, and you should let them know by supporting them, if you want to see more pro play, they'll continue to do it, right? There are other games like the original StarCraft Brood War, where the competitive league is not run by the original company, Blizzard. It's run by a different company, right? So you can have a state of the world where whoever's running organized play in tournaments is not Wizards themselves, right? As long as there's demand, as long as you're paying money, you can't be I want to watch Grand Prix coverage or something, but I'm not going to pay $5 subscription to support the streaming, right? As long as there's money there, someone will be there to make it. So, we already have one existing league today, which is Star City Games, right? We have many, many, many tournaments happening on MTG Melee, right? Some of them will be larger. Some of them will have streaming, right? Some of them will have coverage. So there is a scene, and it's important that you support it if you actually enjoy it and want it to happen, right? Because if there's money to be made, people will make it, right? If there's no money, then people will move on. And that's how it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But we got other topics to get to. But before we do, Richard, we have a sponsor this week. Why don't you tell everyone about them?
All right. Today's podcast is brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN secures your internet and protects your data. So if you're like me, and sometimes you use your laptop at a coffee shop or an airport, and you don't want people snooping in on your latest Jund tech, right? You don't want people to pre-metagame against Strangleroot Geist. You got to keep it all under wraps. NordVPN keeps your connection secure without sacrificing any speed. They have servers in over 60 countries, and they have a strict no logging policy. And one of my favorite things to do is to use NordVPN with Netflix to watch shows from other countries at no additional cost. So you can go to nordvpn.com/MTGGoldfish or use the code MTGGoldfish to get a 2-year plan plus 1 additional month at a huge discount. And they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. So that's nordvpn.com/MTGGoldfish or the coupon code MTGGoldfish. So thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring this episode.
So let's talk some arena. We got 2 good arena topics. First off, quickly before we get to historic anthologies, there was a arena qualifier this weekend, and somehow, some way, Wizards found a way to sort of mess it up. So day 2 of the event was supposed to be standard. It was advertised as standard. That's what everyone thought it was. Somehow someone pushed the wrong button or something, and it ended up being historic. So you had people that were playing against people playing standard decks with their historic decks. Also caused problems like Winota is legal in standard but banned in historic, so people couldn't play Winota decks. So someone actually tweeted Wizards and were like, hey, what do I do? This is the wrong format. And they said... They said, if you joined with a standard deck, please keep on playing for now. If you've joined with a historic deck, please stop playing and await further instructions. Eventually, it got to the point where they had to essentially redo the entire event. They did give players compensation and got their entry fee back and gave them some gems and the ability to automatically qualify for future qualifiers. But they had to restart the whole thing from scratch. Krim, you play a lot of Arena. How does this keep happening? Why could Wizards not just run a qualifier without some disaster striking?
I don't even know anymore. Like, I don't know how you could just, like, is it actually just a button like, oops, hold on, it's historic? Or I am curious myself because, I mean, it is unfortunate to have to deal with this and then also reset because, there's the timing stuff of everything. And it's such a funny, but I think also a simple mistake.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening. It just keeps happening. Like, Wizards can't catch a break, but I mean, why don't they have a backup plan, right? Like, they're just like scrambling, trying to piece together things at the last second. They're like, hey, hold on, like, don't play, don't queue, wait a minute. Like, they should just be like, the event messed up. Here's the backup plan. We're restarting it. Everyone gets this comp, end of story. But it took them so long to get it out because they were basically making it up as they go, right? So yes, mistakes happen, but there should be a backup plan. And then these mistakes shouldn't happen to begin with, right? Like, is it that difficult to have multiple people check that you put in the right event type? Seems kind of important, right? So I hope Wizards actually does something to fix this going forward because, yes, you got compensated, but what if you had to go to work later, right? You can't play the event anymore, right? What if you took time off work to play the event, right? What if you were like 6-0 before this thing, went down and then you like mulled to 4 the next restart, right? Like, there's all kinds of feel bads that happen from this. So they need to make sure it goes smoothly and they need to put more resources into it, right? Like, if Arena is the premier online client and where you're running these Arena opens, it should work smoothly, right? This is, again, another terrible foray into competitive Magic for first-time competitive Magic players, if this is what happens, right? So, make it smooth, Wizards.
I feel like it's an investment issue. Like, I feel like somehow, and of course, like, casting a shadow over all these conversations today about organized play, about Arena, is Wizards making more money than ever. Like, you got to look at it in that context where Wizards is very proud of the fact that quarter by quarter, year by year, they're making tons and tons of money, but it feels like they just are not investing enough in Arena. One thing I was looking at, and I might do something like a video on this in the future, but is the animations on Arena. I don't know if either of you noticed this. When I was playing Strixhaven, there was a lot of mythics where I was like, wow, this is probably going to have an epic animation. And then I cast it and it really didn't have an animation at all. And I was like, that's really weird. I actually went back and I built decks with every mythic from Throne of Eldraine and Strixhaven just to record the animations. Every single mythic in Throne of Eldraine, it's got animation, and some are better than others. Like, some are epic, like Realm Cloak Giants, like Hand of God destroying everything. Others, you get Brazen Bar where it pops up the little fairy and flies away. If you go to Strixhaven, less than half, I think, actually have an animation that is anything more than just like a generic color when it enters the battlefield. Most of them do not have a unique animation. All the Elder Dragons have, I believe, the same animation of a dragon shadow flying over the screen. So I feel like even from the context of the animations, there's just not the same amount of investment that there was a year or two ago. So I'm a little nervous about that, with Wizards making more and more money than ever, but the tournaments seem to be having a harder time firing and having more issues. We're getting less animations. Maybe like Wizards is just taking Arena for granted at this point and like assuming that everyone's going to give them money anyway. And if you're playing Arena, you're probably going to keep playing it regardless of animations or tournaments being in the wrong format. But it does feel like these issues keep coming up again and again and again. And I hope that Wizards can peel off a little bit of their record-breaking profits and maybe invest a little bit more in Arena and make sure tournaments fire smoothly and whatnot.
They've heard you. They've added one more intern to run Arena opens.
Speaking of Arena, we got new cards coming to Arena. We have Historic Anthology V. We have the full card list. There's 25 cards in all, which probably can't read all of them. I think, what are some of the big hitters, Richard? So for people listening to the audio cast.
All right. I'm just going to list all the cards and I assume everyone knows what they do because we're all enfranchised players, right? We know what they all do. So Ancient Grudge, Atarka's Command, Court Homunculus. If you don't know what that does, don't worry. Dragonstorm, Dramoka's Command, Elish Norn, Grizzly Salvage, Ichor Wellspring, Intangible Virtue, Into the North, Jin Gitaxias, Kolaghan's Command, Merfolk Looter, Ojutai Command, Ray of Revelation, Relic of Progenitus, Reverse Engineer, Shieldred, Silumgar's Command, Stifle, Trash for Treasure, Urabrask, Vault Scourge, Vorinclex, Whirler Rogue.
What do you think, Krim?
Okay, so like the command cycle, I am so excited for this cycle of commands just because this is the one that I think should have been here quite quite a while ago, either through another anthology or some sort, right? Because these commands are going to be so much fun, and it's going to be cool having K command and all of that. So I don't understand some of the random little artifacts, like the 1 mana white artifact
Court
or whatever it is.
1 mana 1/1?
Yeah, that one.
Gets +1/+1.
The homunculus. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, like I don't know why that's even added, but you know, whatever. So Dragonstorm is in this. The Praetors are here. This, like, the Praetors being here is really cool to the, you know, for everyone that wants to reanimate these targets, right? So like these, like Jin Gitaxias is going to be a very fun reanimator target. You know, Elish Norn. But otherwise, I think it's just a few other things to try to boost the archetype of artifacts. But yeah, I also thought Intangible Virtue was already on the client. I guess it wasn't. So for some odd reason, I thought that card it already existed. So if I just go over this, I think the coolest thing that I'm seeing here is the commands and Stifle. Not because Stifle is good, but because Stifle is funny. And now you can play blue-white memes and you could bring like Mana Tithe and Stifle and put it into a deck and just try to counter the most random things.
Oh, speaking of Stifle, I gotta go on a little mini rant. I have had about 100,000 people be like, I'm gonna use this to stop Thassa's Oracle. This is gonna be cool. I did a thing today about like, should we ban Thassa's Oracle in Historic after the pack combo was more than 50% of the meta over the weekend, and some people are like, wait, I gotta wait for Stifle. Gotta wait for Stifle because that's gonna be the answer. That's ridiculous to me. Like, Stifle, yes, Stifle does technically counter Thassa's Oracle's Enter the Battlefield trigger. The thing is, an actual counter spell on Thassa's Oracle also stops it. And the thing is, we also have Tail's End, which is 1 mana more than Stifle, but hits other things, and that hasn't stopped it. And Stifle's super narrow. There's no fetch lands in the format. So the idea that Stifle is going to be the solution to Thassa's Oracle Tainted Pack combo, I think is incredibly far-fetched. I do think Stifle's a funny card. I don't think it'll be good in Historic, but I do think maybe stifling your own Lotus Fields or doing shenanigans like that, or just memeing around like Krim said, I think it's going to be fun. So I'm glad they added it, but I don't think this is an actual answer to the Oracle Pack combo. As far as the rest of the anthology, I think this is a pretty solid anthology. I know the last one was a little underpowered. I think all the Praetors are sweet. Elish Norn is probably, I would guess, going to be the most impactful, but they're all sweet reanimation targets. They're all pretty iconic cards. I think that the command cycle, some are better than others, but several of them are pretty playable. I think Atarka's Command and Kolaghan's Command are probably the two big winners that just like naturally fit into top tier decks in the meta, where you already have essentially Pyromancer decks, almost like exist in Modern, that are definitely going to want to take advantage of Kolaghan's Command, some of the Croxa discard decks, the Village Rites sacrifice decks. Atarka's Command seems perfect for the Gruul, Beatdown, Burning Tree Emissary style decks. And then you get a bunch of sweet sideboard cards like Ancient Grudge, Ray of Revelation. Grizzly Salvage has its uses. Into the North is an actual rampant growth in the format, as long as you're willing to play snow-covered basics over normal basics, but I think people will be because we don't have a rampant growth in the format. Relic of Progenitus, another good sideboard card. So I actually really like this anthology. I don't see much that I think is going to like break the format, but I think there's a lot of playable stuff in here. There's jank stuff for lower tiered archetypes and stuff that's going to power up already popular decks. So I think they kind of nailed it with this one, in all honesty.
Yeah, this one's a lot better than the last one, that's for sure. Also, Grizzly Salvage, maybe now we're getting closer and closer to an actual like Reanimator style deck.
Grizzly Salvage is huge. That's a card that sees play back to like Pioneer and Modern in decks that are looking to fill the graveyard. It's a really powerful version of that effect. So I think that does go a long way towards Reanimator and other graveyard-based strategies, powering them up. I don't know about the Praetors, in all honesty, outside of reanimation shenanigans. I'm not sure that they're cards that people just like be casting in most decks. What do you think about the Praetors, Crib? Are they just like fun reanimation targets, or do you think they'll actually have like a top tier impact on the meta?
Yeah, they're just gonna mostly be a fun Reanimator target. Like because like let's be honest, Sheoldred's probably not great. Urabrask. These cards are probably sweet in Commander, and when you look at this as a Commander player, like, oh my gosh, yes, these cards are amazing and whatnot, but when you look at a 60-card format, I just don't think any of these cards are going to do anything.
And
the one that's most likely to do anything is like maybe Jin Gataxias.
And I think Intangible Virtue is a card that we know it's good. It's good enough to see play in Modern. I'm just not sure we got the token producers to support it yet, but that's what I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. If we ever get like Spectral Procession, Bitter Blossom, Lingering Souls, that style of token producer in Historic.
Oh, yeah.
Then Intangible Virtue is probably going to be part of a really good deck, but I think we're just like a little bit light on really strong token producers right now to make an Intangible Virtue deck.
I'm just surprised there's no cranial plating at this point. Like, just drop a cranial plating into the format. Like, Vault Scourge? Why? Like, what am I going to do with this?
It's for Court Homunculus, Krim. Come on.
Oh, come on. I don't need... Court Homunculus?
It's actually a pretty good card. Like, okay. It's obviously targeted at Tempered Steel, which is they unleashed, 2 or 3 historic anthologies before. It's seen a tiny bit of success, but several of these cards, Core Homunculus and also Vault Scourge, I think they're actually really good in a Tempered Steel deck. The question is Tempered Steel going to be good? I don't know. Historic is in like such a powerful place right now. I'm not even sure that like, even if you had cranial plating, like, is an affinity style deck actually going to be good enough to keep up with the current meta? I'm actually not sure. So I don't know if these cards actually get it over the hump, but I don't think that Court Homunculus is a joke. If I'm building Tempered Steel, I'm probably playing that as a 1-drop. Like, it's a 1-mana 2/2 that also benefits from your payoffs like Steel Overseer and Tempered Steel. So I actually don't think it's as bad as we're making it out to be.
This seems incredibly fair, Seth. I don't know.
I think it's as bad as it might even be worse.
Oh, y'all don't appreciate a good artifact beatdown, apparently.
I mean, as you went into Tattooed Inkmoth Nexus, man. Not a Homunculus.
And a cranial plating or something like that. But like otherwise, it's just like, hello, I like, very cool. You have played a 1-mana, maybe a 2/2, right? Or it will eventually be a 2/2. A Vault Scourge, sure. But I don't know, like, none of these cards seem like these will be players as they move forward. For right now, though, on release day, I think the majority of these are probably not going to be that great. I think Ichor Wellspring has a higher chance of breaking into the meta. Because I'm not like, that might seem like a meme, but like Ichor Wellspring was playable in like a Tezzerator deck, and sure, just they should just put Tezzeret Agent of Bolus or something like that in here, by the way. And put Scissors or whatever. I forgot the name of the actual card, but yeah.
Artifact.
In Soul Artifact. I think they should put those cards into the format.
I would be down with Tezzeret. I'm also excited to build Dragonstorm. I know I don't expect it to be good, but we do have Ironcrag Feet. Like, you can get up to 9 mana, and then we do have a lot of dragons. We just got all the new Elder Dragons. There's a bunch that have already been in the format, so I don't think Dragonstorm's going to be like a top tier deck or anything, but it does seem like a fun deck to build.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fun when you can get everything going, but like at the same time, I feel like Dragonstorm might just be more like I might just play the dragon normally or something like that. Like,
worse than Ichor Wellspring.
Well, I would. Ichor Wellspring has I think Ichor Wellspring has a higher chance to break into the historic meta than Dragonstorm. Also.
Court Homunculus or Dragonstorm, Krim? That is the question.
Dragonstorm.
No respect for the Court Homunculus. So Wizards also dropped one more announcement. There are some card styles coming for the Praetors, the Phyrexian language. So we've had the Judge promo Elish Norn with the Phyrexian text. We're going to have it for all 5 Praetors. And they're also coming in a Secret Lair drop in paper. So we'll have arena card styles for them and then a Secret Lair drop that's TBD featuring the 5 Praetors with Phyrexian language on it.
That's going to be a pretty spicy Secret Lair. Like, I think that's going to be a super popular one. But yeah.
Yeah, they look awesome.
If they do that, they should also just do a Secret Lair with all the Dragon Lords too. Because I don't know. I hope we get a Dragon Lord Secret Lair or something like that. And on that too, I'm surprised that this historic anthology dropped with the commands, but not the Dragon Lords.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. Maybe
right,
Historic Anthology 6 we get them, but they seem like they'd be fine for the format. They're not too busted.
Yeah, like they're not busted. I think I think they should put something like Silumgar Scorn and a few more dragon payoff cards that aren't, just like, here, Sarkhan, ramp out a big red beater and then that's it. Like I think something like Esper Dragons would be fun to play. Probably not really that good, but like fun to play. Also,
really quickly to point out with the Phyrexian Praetors, I think there's some financial relevance here in that Phyrexian Elish Norn, the Judge Probo, is really expensive. And traditionally, you kind of think of cards like that to be safe from reprinting for the most part, those really unique, weird cards. But this is essentially a reprint of Phyrexian Elish Norn in a Secret Lair drop. So if you have some because I would always think like the original masterpieces, like Fetch Lands and so forth, or the various like Amika Invocations, they're very unlikely to reprint those exact cards again. But now I'm not so sure. Like I think with the era of Secret Lairs, anything can be reprinted. So I don't know if special versions and masterpieces are actually like a safe haven financially, like I used to think a few years ago at this point, because seeing Elish Norn and Phyrexian be reprinted is kind of surprising. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's just something to be aware of. If you were treating those special printings as like a safe way to invest or like getting versions of cards that wouldn't be reprinted go down in value, I don't know if that holds up anymore with Secret Lairs happening. Anyway, Richard, we got a few minutes. Fish mail us.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. @SolidGoldToilet. With the power creep making decks faster and turn 3 and turn 4 kills possible in some formats, do you think Wizards would ever raise the starting life to 25? Do you think it would change anything?
Does that change? I mean, like, look, I'm thinking like Brawl. Like Brawl is 25 life, right? I think something is 25 life.
Momir is 25.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
Brawl
okay.
might be 30 actually, but
it was at 30. Okay, well, never mind. I don't think they should. 5 more life. I don't see the point in it, to be honest with you. It doesn't necessarily do anything for, I think, the game so far.
yeah, I don't know if it would make things better. I think if extra 5 life would make it much more difficult to play aggro, like mono white or mono red, and then by association, that might make control decks or things like the Salte Ultimatum deck even better, because in theory, the way you can beat them is maybe getting in under them with aggro, but if your Yarion deck starts with a 5 life buffer, it's going to be even easier for them to like have that extra turn to find their Wrath and stabilize, or have the extra turn to Wrath in or ramp into their Emergent Ultimatum. So I actually don't really like that idea either. I don't think it would improve things.
I don't know what format this is talking about, but shouldn't we be decreasing life? Like if you're getting a turn 3 or turn 4 kill, that's some like unfair combo kill, right? And that doesn't let people with combat like win because it's too fast. So if you decrease life, it gives everyone a fair shot to win on turn 3? Or am I just like totally misunderstanding everything?
Richard, your mono red is showing. Like
I mean, yeah, you want to combo off on turn 4? I'll kill you on turn 4 with combat, right? Like, yeah, it's fair, right?
I don't think we need to do that either. There's the simple thing where they could just print more ways to deal with combos, or if the combo is problematic enough, we just ban the combo instead, right? Like
Thassa's Oracle, ban it.
Thassa's Oracle, yeah. Or I mean, I don't think it would be Thassa's Oracle; it'd be Tainted Pact.
Oh, I just want to get rid of Oracle because it's a problem in every format, like or many formats.
It's only a problem, I think, in Commander, right?
It wasn't Pioneer and the Inverter deck until they banned it. Like they always ban the non-Oracle card for some reason. they always ban the support card rather than Oracle itself.
Yeah,
I yearn for a fair Laboratory Maniac kill. At least like make them draw a card. Do a little bit of work for your combo kill.
I don't know. I mean, I don't see the point in lowering health. Let's just go with that. Like, because then a card like a Lightning Strike would be backbreaking. Just a single Lightning Strike.
Yeah, I don't.
And Thassa's Oracle is not backbreaking. I don't know what you're saying.
Oh no, it is. It is. Thassa's Oracle is still backbreaking, but I don't know. Like, does that really help at all?
I think 20 life's fine.
All right, 19. Take it or leave it. Final offer.
19. We're not bargaining here. That's not how that.
Yo, Tarmogoyf needs help. Crobledo. Word is WPN stores are asking WotC for Standard to not rotate for a year to ease the burden for paper players in stores. Is this feasible? Other ideas to get Standard paper events at LGS is back on track.
Wait.
We're going to delay rotation from this upcoming... No. This rotation needs to happen for Standard to be a thing again. So, right? Like, am I the only...
Oh, I 100% agree. No, please do not. I would rather speed it up. If they want to move it up by a year, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the line of thought is people are not buying cards and playing in Standard, right? And maybe because they fear rotation is happening, so they're not buying cards and playing Standard. But I think what you guys are saying is Standard sucks, and that's why people aren't playing it, so they need to rotate it quick, right?
Yeah, I don't think the reason why Standard isn't doing too hot is because like when it comes to sales is because people are afraid of rotation right now. I think it might be more on just like everybody. If a majority of people that you ask, they will probably say Standard's not great right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if Standard is struggling, it's probably that people are sick of the cards that are currently in the format because we've been dealing with the same cards for so long that people are kind of waiting until rotation. I think that's the attitude I've seen on social media, on the stream when the topic comes up, where most people are looking forward to rotation as their opportunity to start playing Standard again. So I actually think that keeping Eldraine in the format for another year would do exactly the opposite of what the person asking the question was hoping for, which is get more people to play paper Standard. I think that's the exact wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
Last question. Le Parker. In Yu-Gi-Oh, every 6 months there will be new bannings that shake up the meta. Everybody knows this, and it's easier to live through bad metas knowing there will be bannings and limitations at set dates. Could that be a potential way for Magic the Gathering?
Oh, I mean, I think totally, right? Like, you could totally try to do that. I mean, if they're gonna like drop Eldraines every set or every other set, but I don't know. Having tons of bans come in that often does kind of scare your consumer base when it comes to like Standard.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. What is the cost of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck? Like, is it roughly the same is it actually more than a Magic deck? When
I last played Yu-Gi-Oh, like Standard or whatever competitively, I think I had to buy Tour Guide of the Underworld, and you need a play set. So it's a play set in Yu-Gi-Oh is 3, so they were about $250 a piece.
Standard?
Standard, yes.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, and then you have your extra deck, which was like your fusion monsters and stuff like that, and then your Ixies. So there's like Zen mains, which is another like $200. So a deck can, and maybe that was at the time I was playing, maybe that era was the most expensive it'd been, but like there was still Rescue Rabbits, and those were like $50 a piece. So Yu-Gi-Oh decks are very expensive, and the market for Yu-Gi-Oh can overnight. I think when it got a reprint announcement out of nowhere, my tour guides went from $250 to $5. So I was very upset because so I don't know if like because I think the design philosophy behind Yu-Gi-Oh also might be a lot more wild. So believe it or not, I think Magic is somehow the more balanced game. Do I think they need to have a banning every 6 months? Probably. That's a bit aggressive. But yeah, like I think that Magic should be more aggressive to ban if they are trying to, like, you know, especially like in historic formats, like their digital format. But paper format, I don't know. I like Standard. I guess every 3 months, just do a check. Maybe 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it'd be nice.
I would be fine with rotation every 6 months personally. Like that, I think that's my ideal solution. I think I would worry that maybe sometimes you don't need a banning. So saying like we're definitely going to ban something every so many, you know, months is a little weird to me, but maybe it would be fine. I do like shakeups of formats, so I would prefer rotation, though, I think, if I had to choose between guaranteed banning every 6 months and just rotating, especially for Standard. I just want to see more rotations and things shaking up faster.
Yeah, I mean, Standard just needs to rotate faster now. 100%.
Also, since we're talking about other games, I got to bring this up super quick. I know we're running long. Neither one of you really play Hearthstone actively, right? Hearthstone...
Not really.
They announced just recently they are selling full meta decks, like literal actual tournament decks that players seem to think are like actually pretty good, but they're selling them for $20. So if you would like to play Hearthstone and you want to play a tournament in Standard, rather than opening tons and tons of packs, which you had to do before, you can just buy a deck, go to the store, $20, get your meta deck and go play a tournament. It makes me a little sad.
It's a real meta deck, right?
Like
Not
the
an
digital
event deck.
store.
No, so I've read a couple articles and some people are like, well, it's not like fully 100% optimal, but they're like actual like tournament decks that have a bunch of legendaries and epics and rares. So yeah, they're not event decks. If they're at least challenger decks, our equivalent of challenger decks, probably roughly like challenger decks, maybe slightly better than challenger decks, except you get that honor.
Value wise, if it's value wise, I think it might even be better than a challenger deck because the dust and whatnot, dust value of a legendary seems amazing. And especially if you need, I don't know what legendaries they're coming with though. So like,
and also we can't get challenger decks on Arena, Richard. That doesn't do anything for Arena.
Would you buy a challenger deck? Would this solve any woes if they sold challenger decks?
If I could pay $20 to get like a bunch of rares and mythics and needed to, you know, craft a couple more wild cards or something, a couple more Ember Cleaves to finish Mono Red or something, I think that would be a huge savings. Like right now it costs so much to get a deck
for $20.
Like $20 just seems really cheap to get compared to, I would pay $20 for a single mythic on Arena.
I guess that's true. If the challenger deck came with an Ember Cleave or something, then you would just buy 4 of them to buy 4 Ember Cleaves. So yeah.
Because we can't necessarily buy a single card we're looking for. So like something like that. Oh my god! If Hearthstone becomes the budget game, that means the economy on Arena is just moving that far away from everybody.
All right, so that's all the fish mail we have for today. With a little sidetrack to Hearthstone. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 329 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes down in the world of Magic. So, until then, everyone, have a great week. And this is the crew signing out.